This is one of the most spine-chilling animatronics we've ever covered, and because spooky season is kicking off, we have a special video for you. Today, we're recapping the 13 scariest and most Halloween-themed moments from all our videos. This season, we have 13 special videos planned, and we're starting with this eerie recap. Let's dive in with one of the creepiest props ever created.
This animated prop is perhaps the most coveted among fans in the community, often fetching prices of up to $3,000 on eBay. Spasm made its debut in 2005. This prop runs on batteries and features a sensor that, when activated, causes the grotesque figure to tremble uncontrollably. While this figure doesn't have a specific Spirit Halloween lore, it has an intriguing story that actually contributed to its popularity. There's a well-known creepypasta, possibly one of the most popular ones, called the Russian Sleep Experiment. It's often shared with the terrifying image that reveals they used the Spasm animated prop to create it. This association has undoubtedly contributed to the infamy and popularity of this prop.
Next, we're diving into one of the most chilling and heartbreaking stories we've ever covered.
Rosie the Shark. This is undoubtedly the saddest story on this list, and it may not involve a prop or animatronic, but you requested that tribute be paid to Rosie, so here we go. Rosie's story dates back to 1997, when, in her quest for tuna, Rosie was caught in a net and had to be sacrificed as she couldn't be safely released. Rosie was in almost perfect condition at the time of her death, so they decided to put her through a taxidermy process in 1998. Wildlife Wonderland acquired Rosie for their zoo, where she was to be on display. However, the Australian government had a report of a missing person in the area, so they investigated to see if Rosie had any human remains. Rosie tested negative in the autopsy, and finally arrived at Wildlife Wonderland, where she stayed until 2012. In 2013, Wildlife Wonderland closed its doors and transferred all its animals, but Rosie was left abandoned in a tank filled with formaldehyde. The sight of the abandoned shark was horrifying. For years, the park remained abandoned, and vandalism destroyed the top of the tank containing Rosie. After thousands of online petitions to rescue Rosie, Tom Capitani took ownership of Rosie in 2019. It required a massive effort to dispose of the contaminated formaldehyde before she could be moved safely. With a significant group effort from the current landowner and Membreys Crane Hire, Rosie the Shark was lifted out of the abandoned wildlife park and on her way to her new home at Crystal World. Rosie is now at her forever home at Crystal World Exhibition Center, where she is being restored and will soon be on permanent display as work is underway to expand the building, creating a space for the Rosie the Shark exhibition area. At least this story had a somewhat happy ending.
Now we're going to dive into a story that the internet infamously turned into something terrifying, but the of-it truth is far from that.
In the dim-lit background of a room, an android named Tara begins to sing, her voice eerily harmonizing with the ambient sounds. Her surreal appearance and haunting melody set the tone for one of the most puzzling viral sensations of the 2010s, the I Feel Fantastic video on YouTube. But where did she come from? Who was behind this digital enigma? Let's rewind. Tara first emerged into the public eye through a Vsauce video titled "Why Are Things Creepy?", which instantly grabbed the attention of a fascinated audience, all eager to decode this mysterious video's origins. As curiosity grew, whispers of an elusive 15-minute extended video of Tara began circulating. But this footage seemed to have vanished from the internet. The trail of breadcrumbs led to one name: John Bergeron, an android enthusiast with an evident penchant for the mysterious. Bergeron was the genius behind Tara's creation. As investigations deepened, a rare DVD surfaced, revealing even more haunting visuals of Tara, leaving viewers both captivated and terrified. However, as is often the case with enigmatic internet legends, darkness lurked on the fringes. A chilling myth arose that Bergeron was a serial killer, and Tara's performances were an eerie celebration of his heinous act. The theory even went so far as to suggest that the clothes Tara wore belonged to his victims. The internet, with its voracious appetite for sensationalism, lapped up the rumors, and soon, many began to perceive Tara's melody as a cryptic message or warning. But truth has a way of emerging from shadows. Thorough investigations and rigorous fact-checking debunk the claims. Online detectives found no evidence linking Bergeron to any crimes. Instead, it became clear that these wild speculations had distracted from the genuine artistry behind Tara's creation. Bergeron, more than just an animatronic lover, was a visionary and a musician. His intention with Tara was to entertain future generations, yet his creation took a dark detour into the realm of internet conspiracy, before finally being acknowledged for its artistic merit. In a melancholic turn, it's believed that Bergeron might never have witnessed the viral fame or controversial myths surrounding his creation. Rumors suggest that he passed away just before Tara took the internet by storm. He might have left the world believing his creations had faded into obscurity, never realizing that his artistic vision had become both an indelible and debated part of internet folklore. From the initial haunting notes sung by Tara, we journeyed through a tapestry of intrigue, myth, and discovery, only to find an artist's passion at its core.
Since we're talking about internet animatronics, our next one on the list is a meme that has terrified an entire country. So let's talk about the ioki.
Amidst the dim aisles of a bustling store, a peculiar mask caught the attention of a visionary. Named the Wacko Jacko, this mask was destined for more than just Halloween shenanigans. It would soon embody an internet legend that whispered its name across forums and sent shivers down the spines of netizens, the ioki. The lore of the ioki is as intriguing as its creation, a play on the words, "Are you okay?" from the lyrics of Michael Jackson's hit, Smooth Criminal. The ioki became synonymous with late-night scares and internet myths. Stories painted it as a creature that lurked in the shadows, hauntingly mimicking Michael Jackson's voice, leaving behind a trail of eerie stories and creepypastas. In this vast world of internet myths, one man brought the ioki to tangible life, Thomas Messerschmidt. Already a respected name in the robotics world, Thomas headed organizations like the Riverside Robotics Society and penned insights on artificial intelligence for Servo magazine. But when his cousin, Thomas Rengstorff, approached him with an idea sparked by a horror story about Michael Jackson, the journey of the ioki animatronic began. Crafting this entity wasn't straightforward. Its lifelike movements were inspired by an unlikely muse, an Elvis Presley animatronic from the long-gone Sharper Image. Thomas dove deep, sourcing parts from tech giants like Radio Shack and Fry's Electronics, and investing hundreds of dedicated hours. 3 months later, the ioki was not just a myth. It was a moving, almost living legend. The world couldn't resist its allure. A chilling 30-second video featuring the animatronic became an internet sensation, racking up millions of views. For Thomas, the virality was unexpected, but the passion behind the ioki was always about pushing boundaries and telling a story, a physical manifestation of an eerie lore. And as the ioki's haunting eyes beckon from Thomas's YouTube channel, it serves as an eerie reminder of the internet's power to give life to legends.
Our next segment doesn't feature animatronics, but it does include a grotesque sight for those who suffer from submechanophobia. We're talking about an abandoned island and cruise ship by Disney.
Before we begin with this one, it's important to point out that we're not talking about Castaway Cay or the abandoned Discovery Island in Bay Lake, which we've already covered in our first Abandoned by Disney video. Many people tend to confuse this island with both of these other islands that we mentioned before, but it's not either of them. Back in 1989, Premier Cruise Lines decided to look for an island to make it a unique destination for the Bahamas cruises. Back then, cruises didn't used to appeal to younger people and families, so Premier Cruise Lines had an idea. They wanted to create the first cruise tailored to families. And what was the best way to do it? They would partner with Disney. So they did, and they began a partnership to create the first Disney-themed cruise. This cruise offered guests a unique experience where they could meet and interact with Disney characters aboard the ship, and also visit an island that offered amazing facilities, beautiful beaches, golf, gift shops, and so much more. There was a big theater with a stage and benches, ferries and trams to transport guests, characters walking around the island, and an awesome camping experience. So what happened? Well, the bay near the development was too shallow for the cruise ships to get to the island. So Premier Cruise Line built a special canal so that their smallest cruise ship could fit. What they didn't think about was that this experience would be a success and it would become very popular. And because only their smallest ship could fit, the island could only be used by one ship each week. This wasn't a problem at the beginning, but when the demand was becoming higher, bigger ships started taking guests to Nassau. Also, the climate made it pretty challenging to go to Treasure Cay, so smaller ships began avoiding it until the island was abandoned entirely. Disney ended their contract with Premier Cruise Line so they could create their own cruise line. They were offered a chance to buy Treasure Cay, but decided not to. They purchased their current island called Castaway Cay, and by 1998, debuted their first cruise ship called Disney Magic.
Presenting the most long-awaited cruise ship ever, the Disney Magic. From Disney Cruise Line, now sailing.
Treasure Cay remained abandoned for more than 20 years, and of course, the natural elements reclaimed the island. So everything started rotting away and deteriorating. In 2006, a plan to rebuild the island was revealed. A group of investors got together and decided to build a luxury resort community called Baker's Bay Golf and Ocean Club. Premier Cruise Lines went bankrupt and sold all of its fleets. The Big Red Boat, or Starship Majestic, the Disney cruise, was sold and became the Ocean Dream. This ship was abandoned at the ocean by the owners for a year on Thailand's east coast, until it sank in February of 2016.
Since we're on the topic of abandoned places, let's dive into one of the most devastating events New Orleans has ever experienced, which left an entire theme park in ruins. We're talking about
Six Flags New Orleans.
Spend the day at Jazzland Theme Park where the fun is in full blast.
I gotta do that again!
Jazzland in New Orleans on I-10 at the I-510 exit is filled with thrills for the whole family. Serious rides, 30 incredible rides, and spectacular entertainment.
This is great!
Come for the thrills, stay for the fun at Jazzland. Open daily at 10 a.m.
Originally known as Jazzland, the Six Flags in New Orleans has stood abandoned for more than 15 years. This 147-acre park first opened in 2000. It was operated for 2 years under the name Jazzland by Alpha Smart Parks, but it was owned by a Spanish company called Parques Reunidos. In 2002, Six Flags purchased the lease for the park and rebranded it as the New Orleans branch of Six Flags. The park featured a myriad of rides, including an inverted roller coaster named Batman the Ride, which was relocated from a defunct park in Japan called the Thrill Valley. A Vekoma multiple looping roller coaster called the Jester, which had been sourced from the Texas branch of Six Flags, among many others. But the signature ride of the park was the Mega Zeph, yet another roller coaster. However, this roller coaster was unique in that it had a wooden roller coaster track built on a steel frame. This was done to prevent termite infestation as well as help the ride withstand strong hurricane winds. The construction of this roller coaster provides a strange sense of foreboding, as not even 5 years after its opening, the park was demolished by Hurricane Katrina and had to close its doors. The park was thoroughly submerged, and in the aftermath of the hurricane, what was left was a wasteland. The park was left standing in nearly 7 feet of water, and all of its rides had suffered extensive wind and water damage. One of the only rides that was lucky enough to escape without too much damage due to its elevated platform and corrosion-resistant structure was the Batman ride. This ride was refurbished and relocated to the Six Flags in San Antonio, where it was unveiled as the Goliath. Unfortunately for the Megazeph, even the hurricane-resistant structure could not protect it from the damage due to long-term submersion in salt water. The park was declared to be a total effective loss, and Six Flags began talks with the New Orleans government to get out of its 75-year lease. In 2009, the lease with Six Flags was finally terminated because of their bankruptcy proceedings. It is currently under the ownership of the Industrial Development Board of New Orleans. With almost all of its equipment damaged and broken, a very spooky aura surrounds this park. Urban explorers, photographers, thrill seekers, and even just curious citizens often hop the fence to take a look around. It is also a popular location to shoot films. Be warned, however, that entering the park is illegal and may be considered trespassing. There have been many attempts to revamp the park over the years, but none of the ideas were implemented. In 2009, Nickelodeon suggested turning it into a Nickelodeon-themed park. In 2011, there were plans to construct a shopping center called Jazzland Outlet Mall. There were even talks of reopening this park under its original name, Jazzland. Finally, the decision was turned over to the mayor. As of May 2021, 2 proposals have been finalized for its redevelopment. One was Bayou Phoenix, which plans to build a water park, a hotel, sports complex, and travel center. Another was Kiernan West and Shield 1, which plans to build an urban farm, education center, and transportation hubs. No matter who wins, one thing is very clear. The park will no longer exist as we know it.
Update. In October 2021, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell announced Bayou Phoenix as the partner chosen to redevelop the site. And on August 15th, 2023, the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority approved the Bayou Phoenix development proposal to move to the next phase. They will invest $500 million to build a complex with sports fields, water parks, hotels, restaurants, and shops. This list wouldn't be complete without animatronic dinosaurs, and we're about to feature what we consider the most terrifying one ever created, due to its size, design, and the fact that it was partially submerged in some scenes. We're talking about the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3.
Spinosaurus, Jurassic Park 3. We talked about how Legacy Effects was in charge of the practical effects for the Jurassic World movies. But where did Legacy Effects come from? Well, Legacy Effects was founded by Lindsay McGowan, Shane Mahan, John Rosengrant, and Alan Scott, who were all supervisors at Stan Winston Studios for over 20 years. The connection to all of this is that John Rosengrant, one of Legacy Effects' co-founders, also worked on another Jurassic Park movie. That's right, he supervised the project for Jurassic Park 3, specifically the Spinosaurus animatronic. To create this animatronic, the team took all the knowledge that they acquired with the construction of the T-Rex animatronics from the previous films and replicated them in this new animatronic. The process is very similar to the one we talked about in the Apatosaurus, but the difference is that because this animatronic is older, there were no 3D models or 3D scanners to help out for reference of the scale. And the size of this animatronic made its creation very challenging. The head alone was 6 feet. Not only that, but the animatronic had to be able to be submerged in water, so a special material had to be added to seal any type of opening that could let water through. Its head is made of graphite so that it can be resistant, and all the parts are welded to a mechanical substructure. The welding process has to be so strict that a specialized agency has to come to approve if everything is correctly welded. This animatronic was much larger than Rexy, and transporting it was quite a feat. The main door of the studio had to be removed so it could be taken out with the help of huge cranes. After this, the animatronic was installed on the set of Universal Studios in LA, in a particular track that allowed the animatronic to move. It is controlled thanks to a telemetry device, so every move that a puppeteer does is replicated in the animatronic. The major scene of this animatronic is when it fights the T-Rex. To create this scene, the team took one of the Jurassic Park Lost World animatronics, repaired him, and literally had the two animatronics fight to the death. And when we say literally, we mean literally. Since the production had planned to destroy the animatronics after the movie was filmed, they decided that it would be a good idea to have them fight each other until they were destroyed. The puppeteers were slamming the two animatronics into each other to get as much footage as they could. The team was a little on edge about it because they'd put a lot of time and work into the animatronics, but the producers and studio execs were having a great time watching this, rooting for either the T-Rex or the Spinosaur to win. In the end, the Spinosaurus knocked the head off of the T-Rex. The head collapsed, the neck tore open in the back, and hydraulic fluid shot out of it, almost like blood spurting. As for the Spinosaurus, we contacted Stan Winston Studios a while ago, and they confirmed that the animatronic had indeed been dismantled.
In this list, we're not including Bruce from Jaws, but we are going to feature the most realistic animatronic sharks ever created. Walter Conti's sharks from the movie Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea, the 1999 thriller movie, was known for its realistic and terrifying shark attack scenes. One of the key elements that made these scenes so convincing was the use of animatronics.
Well, it's animatronics, didn't it?
The filmmakers chose to rely on animatronics rather than CGI to bring the sharks to life because they wanted to respect Steven Spielberg's method. Unlike in Jaws, where the animatronics had many issues, they designed their animatronics to be able to swim, chase, do close-ups, and attack without the water causing problems. This approach allowed them to capture real sharks' realistic movements and essence, making the scenes more terrifying. The animatronics used in this movie were remote-controlled and could move their tails, gills, eyes, and jaws, just like real sharks. But the real challenge was to make these animatronics look as realistic and convincing as possible. So the team spent 8 months building them and studied videos of real sharks to capture their movements and essence. The team also knew that to make the animatronics more realistic, they had to rely on a mix of CGI and animatronics. The combination of animation techniques helped to instill fear in audiences. For those with submechanophobia, the animatronics in Deep Blue Sea would be particularly terrifying. The realistic movement and appearance of the animatronics, coupled with the fact that they are seen underwater, would trigger a huge fear response. The fact that the animatronics were used to depict dangerous sharks only adds to the fear factor. The animatronics used in Deep Blue Sea set a new standard for the use of animatronics in movies and are still considered some of the most realistic and convincing ever created. So next time you watch Deep Blue Sea, pay attention to the animatronics and how they help to create some of the most terrifying shark attack scenes in cinema history.
Of course, we couldn't leave out one of the most terrifying abandoned animatronics on this list. We're talking about our good friend, Norman.
Back in 2004, Interpol released their second studio album, Antics, and the second single from this album was Evil. This single's music video, directed by Charlie White, shows a life-sized animatronic puppet who travels via ambulance to a hospital emergency room following a car crash, being examined by real-life actors as he sings the lyrics to the song, to dramatize the song's theme of losing oneself after a trauma, before breaking into a frantic dance on the operating table. White listened to the song on a loop for an entire weekend and hired the special effects team that had worked on the films Hellboy and Fantastic Four to create the puppet. The puppet's animatronic head was programmed to automatically sing the song. 6 puppeteers who needed to be digitally removed from the video were tasked with moving its eyes and body. The video was a huge hit among fans, who thought the animatronic was cute and creepy. They ended up calling him Norman, and he gained a huge cult following on Interpol's online message board shortly after the video premiered. But after a while, Norman was lost, and its whereabouts remained a mystery for almost a decade. When the video first came out, artist John Colbeck remembers thinking that he would give anything to own Norman, and strangely, 17 years later, he ended up doing just that. John describes himself as a weird guy who's into weird stuff. He is an artist who grew up enjoying Jim Henson's creations and strange late-night TV. And according to him, this mix of interests has been reflected in the kind of work he does and the stuff he collects. Back in 2017, he created a YouTube channel about 2 animatronics that live in the underworld and go on adventures. But he never forgot about Norman. So he began doing an online search and came across this LA prop art where he could see a ghastly puppet that they had listed as a ghoul puppet from some music video. After closer inspection, he realized that the ghoul puppet was in fact Norman. He didn't lose a second before calling to ask about the animatronic, but to his horror, Norman was not only not available anymore, but he had been given away because nobody had wanted him. John thought his dream was over and he was ready to give up, but he decided to try one more thing. He asked for the help of his YouTube channel fans to search one last time for the animatronic, and to his luck, a fan actually said there was a guy on Facebook that was a prop collector, and he had Norman. With the help of his friends, family, and fans, he was able to pool funds together to buy Norman. Norman is now being used to host various videos on John's channel, and he has been semi-operating, but he is in terrible shape from years of neglect. It's really awful how he was treated after he was finished in the video. Servos are shot. His skin, which is like a Nerf football, is completely discolored and ripped. To be able to restore Norman back to his former glory, John contacted Luna's Puppets, a company that creates custom-made costumes, props, and animatronics.
Luckily, Norman was restored by Luna's Puppets, the same team that helped with my creation. Today, he's the host of the YouTube channel Odd Stories YT. A happy ending for my great friend Norman. This next moment takes us to one of the largest semi-submerged animatronics ever created, and one that has been the cause of many people's deepest fears.
Beneath is a 2013 horror film that tells the story of a group of teenagers that are celebrating the end of high school with a canoe trip,
Bad idea.
but are attacked by a giant man-eating catfish. And while this might not be the best horror film, or even a good one, we can say that it is pretty cool that they used practical effects instead of only relying on the use of CGI. The use of practical effects is excellent in any movie, but it is even better in horror movies because nothing can see the idea of realism of a creature than having it physically on set. This animatronic was created at the insistence of director Larry Fessenden. Using an animatronic to give life to the catfish provides the creature with that retro and nostalgic feel. This monster was created by Justin Raleigh and his Fractured FX team. This fish is a classic combination of puppetry and animatronics in the vein of Bruce, the shark from Jaws. But unlike our favorite shark, the catfish is shown from the beginning of the movie, and subsequently in countless scenes. Some people say that the animatronic, while very impressive, is totally unconvincing as a source of danger. But even if this is true, it gives us countless submechanophobia-inducing scenes. On Reddit, this monster is known for terrorizing people who classify it as way too big, way too close.
The next segment was so terrifying that it led YouTube to censor an entire video. We're talking about the ticks from the movie Infested.
Infested tells the story of a group of troubled teenagers who are led by social workers on a California wilderness retreat, not knowing that the woods they are camping in have become infested by mutated, blood-sucking ticks. The movie was a direct-to-video horror film that, since its release in 1993, has gained a small cult following, and one of the reasons for this could be because of the stop-motion and practical effects, which look just as good today as they did when they were first used. The tick effects are a convincing mixture of stop-motion and animatronic puppetry by FX artist Doug Beswick. Also, K&B EFX Group was brought in during reshoots, and they're responsible for a humongous tick that hatches out of one of the characters' dead bodies in the final act that goes on a rampage. In the film, local farmers spray their crops with some form of herbal steroids to make them grow better, but unknown to them, a bunch of tick larvae also get sprayed, and it has a harmful effect on them. And that's why these arachnids go crazy. What makes this movie's effects work as well as they do is how disgusting and terrifying they are. Between the massive bugs, the huge larval sacs, the giant tick bites that cause big boils that move back and forth, and the violent eruptions of the giant boils, there is enough realistic gore and general body horror madness here to make the effects work perfectly.
This next animatronic is without a doubt our favorite animatronic suit of all time. And for us, it's also the most terrifying. We're talking about a beloved movie that marked the directorial debut of Stan Winston.
Pumpkinhead.
The scare comes from the setup and the build of the unknown and the shock of when it's going to happen. It's about, do you believe it? And do you believe that what it's going to do will harm you or kill you?
Whenever we hear Stan Winston, we automatically think of terrifying creatures. And what better way to create a new creature and tell its story than having Stan Winston as the director? So, in 1998, he made his debut as director of Pumpkinhead. This film, starring Lance Henriksen, tells the story of a man who invokes a demon in order to avenge the death of his son. But things don't go as planned, as he finds himself having to fight the creature to stop it. For this film, Winston assigned a team of artists to create the terrifying creature so he could be able to focus on the story and direction of the film entirely. The team, led by Alec Gillis, Shane Mahan, John Rosengrant, and Tom Woodruff Jr., designed Pumpkinhead as a humanoid demon with a very large angular head, withered facial features, and long clawed fingers. There's a long process in order to create a creature like this. It begins with a concept, which changed and took shape until it was approved by Winston. Then a life-size sculpture of the demon had to be created. For this, the team was divided into different tasks to have a better result. Then from the sculpture, studio artists and mechanics created a suit and head, which was worn on the set by Pumpkinhead performer Tom Woodruff Jr. To avoid wear and tear on the suit, Woodruff was glued into it at the start of the shoot day and remained in the foam rubber construct for up to 8 hours at a time. Before creating the final suit, several tests were done to see if the character's silhouette was working. A special rig was created for the hands of the creature, and the Woodruff Jr. suit was attached to a cable to facilitate its movement. These tests allowed Woodruff to play a great role during filming. He had control of the movements of the head, but all facial expressions were controlled with a remote control. Since the head of the suit was a pretty complex animatronic full of cables to be able to handle, from the eyebrows, eye, and lips to the articulation of the jaw. The last step was to paint the skin of the creature. For this, the FX team consulted forensic books to match the hues of dead flesh. With the suit ready, the team joined Winston on the set, and Pumpkinhead became a cult classic.
We decided to include these next animatronics on the list because besides being super terrifying and bloody, the idea of killer animatronic sheep is just insane. This segment even caused YouTube to hide one of our videos.
Welcome to the freaky and twisted world of Black Sheep, a horror movie like no other. This movie tells the story of a sprawling farm where a genetic engineering experiment goes terribly wrong, turning innocent sheep into bloodthirsty zombies that terrorize the unsuspecting inhabitants of the farm. Jonathan King, the director of the film, Enter Weta, the visual and special effects experts who help bring some of the biggest blockbusters to life with their incredible work. Weta saw the storyboards and knew they had to use practical effects for the film. In addition, they wanted to give it a retro style and make the actors interact with the zombie sheep as closely as possible to create an immersive and realistic experience. Weta's team of experts got to work, creating animatronic puppets to make the sheep look as terrifying and convincing as possible. But it wasn't just the sheep that required special effects. One scene needed a sheep to attack a character in a moving truck. To make this scene work, the Weta team designed a special rig to control the animatronic by remote control while the car was in motion. This scene was an incredible feat for the team. What makes Black Sheep stand out is its use of practical effects. It was created using old school techniques that are seldom seen in today's movies. The designers even created an animatronic suit for the gargantuan mutant sheep monster used in the final battle, and it was absolutely incredible to watch. This film is a must-watch for anyone who loves horror movies or appreciates the art of practical effects.
And to wrap things up, we present the most terrifying animatronics we've ever discussed on this channel. This segment, and particularly that video, has been one of our absolute favorites. We'll leave the link to each of the videos we featured today, so you can give them a rewatch, but for now, enjoy.
The Thing. Okay, fair warning, these are some of the most terrifying animatronics on the list, and the last part contains some pretty scary scenes. Among animatronics and visual effects fans like myself, we could all agree that The Thing is one of those movies with the best practical effects and most terrifying animatronics ever created. And of course, we owe all this to Rob Bottin. Rob Bottin was a longtime John Carpenter fan.
I saw Halloween, and I instantly became a John Carpenter fan.
And he asked director Dean Cundey to introduce him to Carpenter.
And I begged him to introduce me to John Carpenter. You know, I said, I gotta work with this guy.
They met, and Carpenter hired Bottin to create the special makeup effects for his 1980s film, The Fog. A year later, Carpenter was producing a remake of The Thing, and he decided that he wanted the film to be more faithful to the original 1938 John W. Campbell Jr. novel, Who Goes There? And to achieve this, he needed the alien to be able to change and look like anything it touched continually. And so he called Rob Bottin to do this. Carpenter wanted the transformations to be seen on camera, which could only be achieved with the use of animatronics and practical effects. To be able to create one of the most shocking and terrifying scenes in the film, Bottin needed the help of storyboard artist Mike Plug to sketch the scene. This was one of the most complex sequences in the film and required actor Charles Hollom to spend 10 straight days with Rob Bottin's team so they could model all body parts of his character for the animatronic. The model was so realistic that people in the production thought the mold was actually the actor. Also, a special rig was created to have the actor's torso transform into a kind of monster that ripped out of another character's arms and then expelled a terrifying spider-shaped head. This is such a great and horrifying scene. The team also used hand puppets, marionettes, radio control wires, and hydraulic. The work put into these animatronics was huge, so much so that Rob Bottin worked 7 days a week for 57 weeks, which resulted in the 21-year-old being hospitalized for exhaustion, double pneumonia, and a bleeding ulcer caused by his extensive workload. Bottin himself explained he would quote-unquote hoard the work, opting to be directly involved with many of the complicated tasks. To take some of the pressure off his crew, Bottin enlisted the aid of special effects creator Stan Winston to complete some of the designs, primarily the dog thing. Thankfully though, all of his work paid off, because The Thing is now known as one of the best sci-fi horror movies out there, and Bottin's work is considered one of the best in film history. And some of the props used in the film have been displayed or auctioned off. Unfortunately, Rob Bottin retired without notice in 2002, and nobody knows the reason why. Some people say he became a real estate agent, but honestly, who knows? All we can say now is we hope he's living a happy life, knowing that The Thing brought the most terrifying animatronics ever created to the big screen, and his legacy will forever live on in this gem from John Carpenter.
Thank you so much for watching this recap with us. The links to all the videos are in the description. See you next week.